The text message came through while I was chaperoning my daughter Emma's 5th grade science camp trip. 3 words from my mother: call me immediately. I stepped away from the group examining pond water samples and dialed. Your niece needs space for her dance trophies, Mom announced. Emma can sleep in the attic. We've already moved everything. You what? Your sister's daughter gets Emma's room now. It's already done, Mom declared. Madison has regionals coming up and she needs proper space to practice. The attic has perfectly good floor space. Mom, we're 3 hours away. Emma's bed. We donated it to Goodwill this morning. Madison is staying with us for the next 6 months while your sister figures out her living situation. I could hear my sister Jennifer's voice in the background. Tell her Madison needs consistency right now. Emma can sacrifice for once. Emma had lived in that room since she was 2 years old. Every growth chart mark, every paint color, the window seat where she read, all of it was in the house where Emma stayed every other weekend. Family shares, sweetie, Dad's voice came through. Madison is going through a difficult time with the divorce. Emma is young and adaptable. She'll be fine in the attic. I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. I understand, I said quietly. Good. We're having a welcome dinner for Madison tonight. You and Emma can join us when you get back Sunday. Oh, and pick up a cake on your way. Madison loves chocolate. The call ended. I stood there as my phone buzzed with a photo from Jennifer. Madison sprawled across Emma's former room, trophies lined up on the shelves where Emma's rock collection had been. Another text from Jennifer. Mom and Dad are being so generous. This is exactly what Madison needs right now. I pulled up my contacts and made a different call. Stevens and Associates. Marcus Chan, please. Tell him it's about the property on Riverside Drive. My accountant picked up within 30 seconds. I was wondering when you'd call. I saw the activity on the account this morning. What activity? Your parents withdrew $15,000 for renovations. New flooring for the bedroom. They used the emergency access you'd set up. I watched a dragonfly hover over the pond. Pull everything. All funding, all access, all automatic payments. Effective immediately. The mortgage coverage? Everything, Marcus. That's going to leave them with approximately 4 months before default. The property taxes alone are. I'm aware. Process it today. The rest of the weekend passed with hiking and campfires. Emma caught fireflies and talked excitedly about showing her rocks to Grandma and Grandpa, about the new geode she wanted to crack open in her room. I didn't tell her. Not yet. Sunday evening we drove home. My phone buzzed continuously. I ignored it until we pulled into our driveway. 17 missed calls. 12 from my mother, 5 from my father. 8 text messages from Jennifer, progressing from confusion to anger. I tucked Emma into bed in our house and finally listened to the messages. Mom's voice shrill. The mortgage company called. They said our payment was declined. There must be some mistake. Call me back right now. Dad attempting calm. Sweetheart, there seems to be an issue with the house account. We need to discuss the financial arrangements. Jennifer furious. What did you do? Mom is having a breakdown. You need to fix this immediately. I poured a glass of wine and called Marcus back. How much exactly? I asked. You've been covering their mortgage for 7 years. That's $4,000 monthly. Property taxes quarterly, another $6,000 per installment. The renovation loan they took out 3 years ago. You've been covering that payment too. $1,500 monthly. Homeowners insurance, HOA fees, the roof repair last year, the HVAC replacement. He paused. Conservative estimate? You've put about $400,000 into that property over the past 7 years. And they think. Based on the conversations I've had with your father in the past, he believes his pension and your mother's part-time bookkeeping business cover everything. They have no idea the house would have been foreclosed 6 years ago without your intervention. I swirled the wine in my glass. What about the renovations they just did? $15,000 from the emergency account, like I said. They believed it was their money. The account was set up in your father's name, but you've been the sole funding source since inception. My phone buzzed again. Mom's photo flashed on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. The next call came from a number I didn't recognize. Miss Peterson? This is Robert Caldwell from First National Bank. I'm calling about the property at 847 Riverside Drive. We've received notice that the automatic payment arrangement has been terminated. The account holders, your parents, are currently 3 months behind on. 3 months. Yes, ma'am. The automatic payments covered the arrears, but with that arrangement terminated, the full balance is now due. They're quite distressed. They were under the impression their accounts were in good standing. Because they were. When I was paying. A pause on the other end. I see. Are you willing to reinstate the payment arrangement? No. Then I'm required to inform you that foreclosure proceedings will begin in 30 days unless the arrears and the current month are paid in full. That's $18,000. I understand. Thank you for the call. I hung up and finally called my parents back. Mom answered on the first ring. Oh, thank God. There's been a terrible mistake. The bank says we're behind on the mortgage, but that's impossible. Your father's pension doesn't cover the mortgage, Mom. It never has. Silence. What are you talking about? Dad's voice came through on speaker. The house. The one you just renovated to give Emma's room away. The one where you made family decisions without consulting me. Who did you think was paying for it? Our pension and my bookkeeping income. Mom started. Covers your groceries and utilities. Barely. I've been paying the mortgage for 7 years. The property taxes. The insurance. The renovation loan you took out for the kitchen remodel. The new roof. The HVAC system. All of it. That's ridiculous, Jennifer's voice cut in. He was there too. Of course she was. Mom and Dad own that house outright. Actually, they have $280,000 remaining on a mortgage they refinanced 8 years ago, which I've been paying. $4,000 monthly. You're lying, Jennifer snapped. Call the bank. Better yet, check the account statements you've never looked at. The automatic payment source? That was my business account. The emergency fund you just used for Madison's room renovation? My money. Dad's voice came through, smaller now. Why would you do that without telling us? You needed help. After the medical bills from Mom's surgery, after the refinance went wrong, you were going to lose the house. I couldn't let that happen. So I set up the payments quietly and let you keep your dignity. Then why are you stopping now? Mom's voice cracked. You gave away my daughter's room. Threw out her bed. Made major decisions about a space I've been funding without even asking me. You wanted to make unilateral family decisions? Make them with your own money. This is insane, Jennifer said. Over a bedroom? You're going to let our parents lose their house over a bedroom? No. I'm going to let them experience the consequences of their choices. You wanted Madison to have that space so badly? You fund it. The renovation costs, the mortgage, all of it. Step up. I'm going through a divorce. I don't have. Exactly. You don't have it. Neither do Mom and Dad. But you all felt entitled to make decisions about resources I was providing. We didn't know, Dad whispered. You didn't ask. 7 years of automatic payments and you never once questioned where the money came from. You just assumed you had it under control. Another call beeped through. Marcus again. I switched over. The property management company just called. Your parents listed the house with them this afternoon, trying to arrange a quick sale. They can't. You're listed as a lien holder for the unpaid property taxes you covered last year. The title isn't clear. How much are we talking about? $12,000 in liens under your name. Plus the renovation loan they don't realize is also in your name as co-signer. Another $43,000. Even if they sell, they'll need your authorization to clear the title. I switched back to my parents. You can't sell the house either. Not without my signature. The liens I've covered, the loans I've co-signed, I'm all over that title. What do you want? Dad asked quietly. I want you to understand that resources aren't unlimited just because you want them to be. I want you to recognize that you made a choice to prioritize Jennifer and Madison over Emma and me. And I want you to live with that choice using your own means. Please, Mom said. We can't afford. Neither could I actually. Do you know how many extra shifts I worked to cover your mortgage? How many opportunities one turned down because I was funneling money into your house? I did it because family is everything. Remember? That's what you always said. We'll fix this, Dad said. We'll give Emma her room back. With what furniture? You donated her bed. Her dresser. Everything. We'll buy new. With what money, Dad? You can't even cover your mortgage. Jennifer's voice cut in, sharp with desperation. So what's your solution? Let them lose everything. My solution is the same one you gave me. Family shares, right? You and Madison can move in with mom and dad. Pool your resources. Figure it out together. That's what family does according to you. That's not fair. Fair? You're right. Fair would have been asking before you threw out a 10-year-old's bed. Fair would have been considering that Emma might have feelings about being displaced to an attic. Fair would have been recognizing that you don't make decisions about resources you don't provide. I let the silence stretch. Here's what's going to happen, I said finally. I'm removing all financial support. The mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, all of it. You have 30 days before foreclosure proceedings begin. You need $18,000 immediately to cover the arrears. If you can come up with that, you'll need $4,000 monthly going forward, plus all the other expenses. If you can't, you'll lose the house. And if we lose it? Mom whispered. Then you'll downsize to something you can actually afford. Maybe a nice apartment. Maybe Jennifer's place once her divorce settles. Maybe you'll all learn to live within your actual means instead of resources I was quietly providing. You're punishing us, Jennifer said. No. I'm letting you experience reality. The reality where your choices have consequences. The reality where you don't get to spend other people's money without their input. The reality where family means consideration and respect, not just taking whatever you want. My phone buzzed with another call. The bank again. I have to go, I said. You have 30 days. I suggest you start making calls. I hung up and sat in the quiet of my own home. Emma's room was down the hall exactly as she'd left it. Her rocks organized by type, her books arranged by color, her telescope positioned at the window. Safe. Secure. Hers. My phone lit up with a text from Marcus. Your father just called asking about a loan against the property. Want me to explain why that's not possible? No, I typed back. Let him figure it out. 3 days later, Jennifer called. Mom's in the hospital. Stress-induced heart palpitations. The doctor says she's not handling this well. I'm sorry to hear that. That's it? You're sorry. What do you want me to say, Jennifer? That I'll rescue you all again? Pay for everything while you make decisions without me? She's our mother. Yes. She's also the woman who threw out my daughter's bed without asking. Who decided my child should sleep in an attic so your daughter could have a palace. Madison is going through a hard time. So is Emma. But nobody asked about that, did they? The line went quiet. The bank is threatening foreclosure, Jennifer said finally. We can't come up with $18,000 in 30 days. Mom and Dad's credit is maxed out. My divorce lawyer already has everything I have. We need help. You needed consideration. You needed to ask. You needed to treat me like family instead of an ATM. But you didn't. So that's it? You're just going to let them lose everything. I looked at Emma's drawing on my refrigerator, a family portrait. Her, me, grandma and grandpa. Hearts drawn around everyone. I'm going to let them face the consequences of treating family like it's disposable. Maybe then they'll understand what they did. You're cruel, Jennifer whispered. No. I'm done being invisible. There's a difference. She hung up. The foreclosure notice arrived on day 28. I received a copy as a lien holder. My parents called one final time. Please, Dad said simply. We were wrong. We see that now. But please don't let us lose the house. Sell it, I said. Downsize. Find something you can afford. We'll never find anything in time. The market is. Then you should have thought about that before you gave away Emma's room. It was just a room, Mom said, crying now. No, I said quietly. It was respect. It was consideration. It was recognizing that I matter. That Emma matters. That you don't get to make unilateral decisions about spaces I'm funding. But you couldn't see that, could you? Because you never saw the money. It was just always there. Invisible. Like me. I hung up for the last time. The house sold at auction 6 weeks later. My parents moved into a small apartment across town. Jennifer and Madison moved in with them. Emma asked why we didn't visit Grandma and Grandpa anymore. Sometimes, I told her, people need to learn that family means respecting each other. Even when it's hard. She nodded, not quite understanding but trusting me anyway. My phone sits silent now. No more frantic calls. No more demands disguised as family obligations. Just peace. And Emma's room exactly where it should be. Safe. Secure. Hers. Because family shares. But first, family has to care enough to ask. The August sun beat down on my sister Victoria's pristine backyard as I watched my 9-year-old daughter Emma help herself to a burger from the grill. The annual family barbecue was in full swing, with relatives scattered across the lawn, admiring Victoria's newest property additions. Before Emma could take a bite, Victoria's manicured hand intercepted the plate. Her diamond bracelet caught the sunlight as she lifted the burger away. "Not so fast, sweetheart," Victoria said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Poor kids need to earn their food at family gatherings. That's how the real world works." Emma's face flushed red as 20 relatives turned to stare. Most nodded in agreement or looked away. Victoria handed her a long pool net, gesturing toward the Olympic-sized pool. Leaves floated on the surface. "The pool needs cleaning before dinner service. I'm sure your mother taught you about hard work, right?" Victoria glanced at me with that familiar smirk I'd endured since childhood. I sat quietly in my lawn chair, sipping lemonade. Emma looked at me with confused, hurt eyes. I gave her a small nod. She took the net with shaking hands. My brother Marcus laughed from his lounge chair. "That's good parenting, Vic, teaching the next generation about earning their keep. Unlike some people," my mother added pointedly, "who just expect handouts from successful family members." I said nothing. I just pulled out my phone and typed a quick message. The response came within seconds. Victoria's husband, Greg, fired up the grill again, announcing premium steaks for the adults who contributed to society. Emma skimmed leaves from the pool, her small arms struggling with the heavy net. Other cousins ran past her, splashing and laughing. "Mom, why do I have to work?" Emma whispered when she came close to my chair. "Just a little longer, honey," I said softly. "Keep going." Victoria overheard and smiled triumphantly. "See? Even she knows her place. That's what happens when you waste your life on silly little jobs instead of building real success." My father raised his glass. "To Victoria, youngest partner at Henderson and Associates law firm. Making the family proud." Everyone cheered. Victoria beamed, soaking in the attention. She'd spent the last hour detailing her latest case, her new Mercedes, and her upcoming vacation to the Maldives. The country club, she'd mentioned it at least 5 times, had just approved her for their executive diamond membership. The club president himself called me, Victoria had announced earlier. Said they rarely see professionals of my caliber. The membership fee alone is $60,000 annually, but when you're at my level, it's just the cost of maintaining the right social circles. She went on about the exclusive golf course, the private dining rooms, and the member-only events. Her entire identity seemed wrapped up in that membership, in being seen as successful. Marcus chimed in. "Remember when Dad tried to get us all memberships there? They rejected his application twice. Said the waitlist was years long." "Well, that's what happens when you have real connections," Victoria said, glancing at me. "Some of us know how to network properly. Some of us just exist." I checked my phone again. Another message. I replied with 2 words. "Do it." Emma finished one section of the pool, her arms visibly tired. Sweat dripped down her forehead. Victoria inspected it like a drill sergeant, walking the perimeter with exaggerated scrutiny. "You missed a spot. There. And there. Honestly, do I have to teach you everything? Maybe if you paid attention in school, you'd understand thoroughness." The other children continued playing Marco Polo in the deep end, their laughter echoing. Not one of them was asked to lift a finger. My Aunt Patricia joined in. "You're too soft on her. My kids knew how to work by that age. But then again, their mother actually achieved something in life." "What do you even do anymore?" Victoria asked me directly, her voice loud enough for everyone to hear. She set down her wine glass with deliberate slowness. "Still doing that freelance thing? Writing or consulting or whatever you call it. Must be nice to have so much free time. No real responsibilities, no pressure to perform." "Something like that," I replied evenly, maintaining eye contact. "See, that's the problem with your generation," my father interjected, warming to his familiar theme. "No stability. No real career. Just floating around with creative jobs that don't mean anything. In my day, you picked a profession and stuck with it. Built something. Created a legacy. She's always been the dreamer of the family, my mother added, her tone making it clear that dreaming was not a compliment. Never had Victoria's drive or Marcus's business sense. Just drifted from one thing to another. Victoria smiled, satisfied with the united front against me. At least Emma will learn some work ethic today. Better late than never, right? Victoria's phone rang. She glanced at it, frowned, then answered. Hello? Yes, this is Victoria Brennan. Wait, what? There must be some mistake. Her face went pale. Everyone stopped talking. But I just got approved last month. The president personally called me. This doesn't make any sense. Her voice climbed higher. What do you mean my membership is under review? She pulled the phone away from her ear, staring at it in disbelief. They hung up on me. Who was that? Greg asked. The country club. They said my membership has been revoked pending a board review. Something about inappropriate conduct and falsified references. Marcus laughed. That's ridiculous. Call them back. Victoria tried. No answer. She tried again. Voicemail. My phone buzzed. I glanced at the message and allowed myself the smallest smile. This is insane, Victoria said, her voice shaking. I have a dinner reservation there tomorrow night with the Henderson senior partners. This could ruin everything. Maybe it's a clerical error, my mother suggested. Victoria's phone rang again. A different number. She answered immediately. Hello? Yes, this is she. What? No, that's not. I never. She lowered the phone slowly. That was the club's head of membership. He said the board received a complaint about my conduct. Something about mistreating service workers and demonstrating behavior unbecoming of the club's values. All eyes turned to me. I continued sipping my lemonade. Did you? Victoria started, but her phone rang again. This time it was a text message. She read it and tears started forming. They're demanding I return my membership credentials immediately. They've already notified Henderson and Associates about the situation. Why would they contact your firm? Greg asked. Because, Victoria's voice broke. They said the complaint came from someone with significant influence. Someone whose recommendation carries more weight than mine. Someone who, she looked directly at me. Who is this person? I stood up slowly, walked to Emma and took the pool net from her trembling hands. Go get your burger, sweetheart. Get two if you want. Wait, Marcus said. What's going on? My phone rang. I answered on speaker. Hello, James. All taken care of, a distinguished voice said. I've spoken to the board personally. Mrs. Brennan's membership has been permanently revoked. I also took the liberty of mentioning the situation to my colleague at Henderson and Associates. He was quite disturbed to hear about her conduct. Thank you, James. I appreciate you handling this so quickly. Anything for you. Your legal consultation saved our club from a $50 million lawsuit 2 years ago. We don't forget that. Besides, the club's code of conduct is clear. We don't tolerate members who demean others, especially children. I ended the call. The backyard was silent except for the hum of the pool filter. James. Victoria whispered. James Morrison? The country club president. Former client, I said simply. I handled a major litigation case for the club. A property dispute with the city. Took me 18 months, but we won. James has been grateful ever since. You're a lawyer? My father said. Corporate litigation specialist. I've been practicing for 12 years. Freelance, as Victoria called it, because I prefer selecting my own clients rather than being beholden to a firm's politics and billing quotas. I handle complex property disputes, contract negotiations and corporate litigation for high-value clients. My retainer starts at $50,000 per case. The silence that followed was profound. Marcus's mouth hung open. My mother's wine glass tilted dangerously in her hand. But you dress so, Patricia started, gesturing at my simple sundress. Modestly, I supplied. That's intentional. I've found that not broadcasting wealth makes people reveal who they really are. It's been quite educational over the years. Marcus stood up. But you never said anything. You never mentioned. Nobody asked, I replied. Everyone assumed. I saw no reason to correct assumptions that made you feel superior. My mother's face had gone white. The country club membership that your father applied for. I'm the one who recommended against it, I confirmed. James asked my opinion on several applications. I told him Dad wasn't a good fit for the club's culture. I was protecting the club from exactly the kind of behavior I witnessed today. Victoria was crying openly now. You ruined my career. Henderson will fire me over this. No, I said calmly. You ruined your own career by demonstrating who you really are. I simply made sure the right people knew about it. Greg tried to salvage the situation. Look, maybe we all overreacted. It's just family stuff, right? Teasing. You made my 9-year-old daughter clean your pool while other children played. You called her poor. You made her earn food at a family gathering. That's not teasing. That's cruelty. Emma stood beside me now, burger in hand, watching her aunt with wide eyes. My phone buzzed again. I read the message aloud. James says the club's board has also decided to review all membership applications from your law firm. Apparently, Henderson and Associates has several partners who are members. They're concerned about the firm's culture if this is how their junior partners behave. Victoria collapsed into a chair, her makeup starting to run. You've destroyed everything. My reputation, my career, my social standing. All because of a stupid joke? This is cruel. Not a joke, I said steadily. A choice. You chose to humiliate a child to feel powerful. You chose to make her clean your pool like a servant while your children played. I chose to show you what real power looks like. Greg stepped forward, his face flushed. This affects me too. Our social circle, our connections. Then you should have stopped your wife from bullying a 9-year-old, I replied. But you didn't. You stood there and did nothing. Patricia stood up. This is excessive. She's your sister. And Emma is my daughter. Which relationship do you think matters more to me? My father tried a different approach. Surely we can work this out. Family doesn't destroy family over one incident. This wasn't one incident, I said quietly. This was 20 years of incidents. 20 years of being dismissed, mocked, and treated as lesser. I tolerated it when it was just me. But the moment you extended that treatment to my child, you crossed a line. Victoria looked up at me with red eyes. What do you want? An apology? Fine. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. They're happy. I don't want anything, I said. I just wanted you to understand that the person you've been dismissing your entire life had the power to change yours with a single phone call. And now you know. Marcus tried one more time. Come on. Let's all calm down. Victoria will apologize properly. We'll have a nice dinner. Everything will go back to normal. Normal. I picked up Emma's hand. Normal was my daughter being treated like hired help at a family gathering. I'm not interested in normal anymore. I walked toward the gate, Emma beside me. Behind us, chaos erupted. Victoria was calling the club Henderson and Associates, anyone who might help. My parents were arguing about whether to support her or try to reconcile with me. Greg was calculating the financial damage. As we reached my car, Emma looked up at me. Mom, are you really a lawyer? Yes, baby. A really good one. Why didn't you tell them before? I buckled her seat belt. Because watching them underestimate me gave me a strategic advantage. In law, we call that leverage. What happens now? Now we go home. And you never have to clean anyone's pool again. My phone rang one final time as I started the engine. It was James. Just wanted you to know, he said. The board meeting concluded. We're implementing a new screening process for all future members. Character assessment will be weighted more heavily than professional credentials. We should have been doing that all along. Good policy, I said. Also, your firm's referral list has been updated. Any attorney you recommend will receive expedited review for membership. Consider it a standing thank you for your continued counsel. The board was unanimous in this decision after I explained your contributions to the club's legal standing. I thanked him and ended the call. In the rearview mirror, I could see Victoria's house. Her perfect backyard with its showcase pool and professional landscaping, her carefully constructed image of success. All of it built on the assumption that she was better than everyone else, that her law firm partnership and country club membership made her superior to the sister she'd dismissed for years. The sun was setting now, casting long shadows across her property. Through the window I could see people gathering their things, the party dissolving into awkward goodbyes and whispered conversations. No doubt they were already texting other family members, spreading the news about what had happened, about who I really was and what I'd done. Sometimes the quietest person in the room is the most powerful. My family just learned that lesson the hard way. Emma was already asleep by the time we got home, exhausted from her humiliating afternoon. I carried her inside and tucked her into bed, knowing she'd wake up tomorrow in a world where her aunt no longer held power over her. As for Victoria, she'd wake up to a very different world. One where her membership was gone, her reputation questioned, and her firm wondering if she was worth the trouble. Her upcoming dinner with the senior partners would be cancelled. Her colleagues would hear about the incident. Her carefully curated image as a rising star would be tarnished by the knowledge that she'd mistreated a child at a family gathering. All because she couldn't resist making a child feel small. All because she needed everyone to see her as successful, as better, as worthy of respect. Respect she then refused to extend to others. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my own modest patio. No Olympic pool. No showcase backyard. No desperate need to prove my worth through material possessions. Just a quiet space where my daughter felt safe and valued, where she never had to earn her right to eat or apologize for existing. My phone showed 3 missed calls from my mother and 7 texts from various family members. I'd respond eventually. But tonight, I simply enjoyed the silence and the satisfaction of knowing that sometimes justice doesn't take years of court battles. Sometimes it just takes one phone call from the right person at the right time. And I had always been very good at knowing exactly who to call. The afternoon sun filtered through my kitchen windows as I prepared lunch. My daughter Emma, 12 years old, with her father's dark eyes and my stubborn chin, sat at the counter doing homework. The doorbell rang just as I was slicing tomatoes. "I'll get it," Emma said, sliding off her stool. I heard my sister Victoria's voice before I saw her. Loud, confident, dripping with the kind of authority that came from 6 years at Meridian Tech Solutions as their senior marketing director. "Where's your mother?" Victoria swept into the kitchen wearing a cream Chanel suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Her designer handbag hit the counter with a thud. "I need to talk to you about Thanksgiving." "Hello to you too," I said, wiping my hands on a towel. Victoria ignored me, her attention fixed on her phone. "The family's coming to my place this year. I'm hosting. It's about time someone with actual standards took over." "Mom always hosts Thanksgiving," I said carefully. "Mom's getting old. Her house smells like mothballs. Mine has a professional kitchen, a dining room that seats 20, and it doesn't look like it's stuck in 1987. Victoria's eyes finally left her phone, scanning my modest kitchen with barely concealed disdain. Unlike some people's homes. Emma had returned to her homework, but I saw her shoulders tense. "So you're just announcing this?" I asked. "I'm informing you. There's a difference." Victoria pulled out a chair, then noticed something on the seat. "Is this cat hair? God, Sarah, do you ever clean?" "We don't have a cat." "Well, something's making this place look like a disaster." She sat down anyway, crossing her legs. Her shoes caught the light. Burgundy Louboutins, the red soles unmistakable. I knew those shoes. She'd posted about them on social media last week. $1,200. Victoria launched into her Thanksgiving plans. She'd hired a catering company. She'd arranged for a photographer. She'd selected a color scheme, burgundy and gold, very sophisticated, nothing tacky. Everyone would need to dress appropriately. She emphasized that last word while looking at Emma's faded jeans. "I expect everyone at 4 o'clock sharp," Victoria said. "That means you'll need to figure out transportation. I know your car is unreliable." "My car is fine. Sarah, I've seen it. It's embarrassing." She checked her phone again, typed something, then looked up. "Speaking of embarrassing, what's Emma wearing to Thanksgiving?" "I haven't thought about it yet." "Well, think about it. I'm not having her show up looking like she shops at thrift stores." Victoria's eyes landed on Emma. "No offense, honey, but your mother's fashion sense is questionable at best." Emma's pencil stopped moving. "Victoria, that's enough," I said quietly. "I'm being honest. You've always been sensitive about money, Sarah. It's not my fault you chose teaching over a real career." She stood up, smoothing her suit. "Anyway, I need to leave. I have a meeting at 4. That's when she noticed the scuff on her left shoe. Victoria's face transformed. She bent down, examining the mark like it was a personal attack. "This is unacceptable. These are brand new. I've worn them twice. Maybe it happened on the way in, I suggested. No, the sidewalk was clean. It was your driveway, that gravel you insist on keeping. She straightened, her expression hardening. You know what? This is actually perfect timing. She walked over to Emma and placed the shoes on the counter in front of her. Polish these. Emma looked up, confused. What? Polish them. There's a scuff. I need it removed. Victoria's voice carried that corporate authority she used in meetings. You can handle that, can't you? Victoria, she's doing homework, I said. It'll take 5 minutes. I have shoe polish in my car. She was already heading for the door. I'll get it. Emma, clear some space. I should have stopped her right there. But something in Victoria's tone, that casual cruelty disguised as a simple request, made me curious. I wanted to see how far she'd go. Victoria returned with a small leather case. She set it down, opened it, and pulled out polishing supplies that probably cost more than a regular person's entire shoe care collection. Here's how you do it, Victoria said, demonstrating on her right shoe. Small circles. Don't press too hard. This is Italian leather. She handed the cloth to Emma. Your turn. Emma looked at me. I gave her a small nod. She took the cloth. Good girl, Victoria said, the way you'd praise a dog for sitting. This is a useful skill. God knows your mother never taught you about quality care. Emma worked quietly, her face carefully blank. She'd learned that expression from me, the one you wear when you can't afford to show emotion. See, this is good for you, Victoria continued, leaning against the counter. Learning how to handle expensive things properly. Since you probably won't own any yourself. She laughed, a bright, careless sound. No offense, Emma, but looking at your mother's life choices, you're probably headed down the same path. Teachers don't make money. Neither do people who clean shoes. Victoria, I said, my voice level. What? I'm being realistic. Someone needs to teach her about the real world. He watched Emma work. Polish them properly. That's all you're good for right now. Might as well learn to do it well. Emma's hand trembled slightly, but she kept polishing. Victoria checked her phone. I really do need to leave soon. That meeting is with the CEO. We're discussing my promotion to VP of Marketing. It's basically guaranteed. She smiled at her reflection in the window. Some of us worked hard and made something of ourselves. I pulled out my own phone and found the contact I was looking for. My finger hovered over the call button. You know what Emma should do? Victoria said. She should consider a trade school. Not everyone's college material. There's no shame in being a hairdresser or a maid. Someone has to do those jobs. I pressed call. The phone rang twice before she picked up. Sarah? Long time. Hi, Jessica, I said quietly. Are you busy? Victoria's head snapped up at the name. Jessica Park had been my college roommate. She'd gone into tech after graduation, climbed fast and hard. We'd stayed close but quietly. Jessica didn't like publicity. Never too busy for you, Jessica said warmly. What's up? I'm here with my sister Victoria. She works at Meridian Tech Solutions. Boss. Victoria Chin? Senior Marketing Director. That's her. Another pause, longer this time. Is everything okay? She's been telling my daughter about her upcoming promotion to VP of Marketing. The silence on the other end stretched. When Jessica spoke again, her voice had changed. Sarah, I need to ask you something. Has Victoria done something? I watched my sister's face drain of color as she recognized Jessica's name. Everyone at Meridian knew Jessica Park. He was the founder and CEO. She'd started the company 7 years ago in her garage, and now it was worth $800 million. She's having Emma polish her shoes, I said simply. She told her that's all she's good for. Your 12-year-old Emma? Yes. I heard Jessica take a breath. Can you put me on speaker? I did. You're on. Victoria Chin. Jessica's voice filled my kitchen, crisp and professional. This is Jessica Park. I'm going to ask you one question and I want a truthful answer. Did you tell a child that polishing shoes is all she's good for? Victoria's mouth opened. No sound came out. Answer me. She's my niece. I was just. Did you or did you not say those words? Victoria's eyes found mine, desperate. It was a joke. I didn't mean. Sarah has never asked me for anything, Jessica said. Not once in 15 years. Not when she was struggling after her divorce. Not when her daughter needed braces. Not when her school cut funding and she was buying classroom supplies with her own money. She's never once used our friendship for personal gain. Her voice hardened. So when she calls me to tell me one of my employees is abusing her daughter, I listen. Jessica, please, I didn't know. You didn't know Sarah was my friend? Or you didn't know it's unacceptable to treat children like servants? Jessica's tone could have frozen water. Let me be clear about something. Sarah and I met freshman year. We were roommates for 4 years. He helped me code my first website. She proofread my business plan. She believed in me when venture capitalists laughed me out of their offices. Victoria had gone completely pale. When I started Meridian, Sarah was the first person I told. She celebrated with me. She's been to my house. She knows my family. She's one of my closest friends. Jessica paused. And you just humiliated her daughter in front of her. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Here's what's going to happen, Jessica said. You're going to apologize to Emma. A real apology. Then you're going to leave Sarah's house. Tomorrow morning you're going to come to my office at 8. We're going to have a conversation about professional conduct and corporate values. The promotion. What promotion? Jessica's voice was ice. Victoria, you were being considered for VP of marketing. We're being. That consideration ended the moment you told a child she's only good for polishing shoes. Victoria's expensive handbag slipped from her fingers and hit the floor. But beyond that, we're going to discuss whether someone who treats children this way should hold any leadership position at my company, Jessica continued. I built Meridian on values of respect, dignity, and equality. You just demonstrated you have none of those. Please, I need this job. I have a mortgage. You have a mortgage on a house with a professional kitchen and a dining room that seats 20, I said quietly. You told me that 15 minutes ago. Jessica's voice softened slightly. Sarah, I'm sorry you had to call me about this. Emma, sweetheart, are you there? Yes, Emma said, her voice small. You are brilliant and capable and kind. What Victoria said to you is not true and never will be true. Do you understand me? Yes, ma'am. Good. Sarah, I'll call you later. Victoria, 8 o'clock tomorrow. Don't be late. Jessica hung up. The silence in my kitchen was absolute. Victoria stood frozen, her perfect suit suddenly looking like a costume. Emma still held the polishing cloth. Victoria, I said calmly. You heard Jessica. Apologize to Emma. My sister's face crumpled. Emma, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean. I was just joking. I never meant to hurt you. That's not an apology, I said. That's an excuse. Victoria swallowed hard. Emma, I'm sorry I said those things to you. I'm sorry I made you polish my shoes. I'm sorry I was cruel. You deserved better. Emma nodded slowly. I'll leave, I said. Victoria grabbed her bag, her shoes forgotten on the counter. She walked to the door, then turned back. Sarah, I didn't know. You didn't know Jessica was my friend. But you did know Emma was your niece. You did know she was 12 years old. You did know she was doing homework. Kept my voice level. You knew all of that and you decided to humiliate her anyway. That's the part that matters. Victoria left without another word. Her car started in the driveway, gravel crunching under expensive tires. Emma was still sitting at the counter, the polishing cloth in her hands. I took it from her gently and threw it in the trash. Mom, she said quietly. Yes, baby. Is Aunt Victoria going to lose her job? I don't know. That's up to Jessica. I pulled Emma into a hug. But whatever happens, it's because of her choices, not yours. You understand that? Emma nodded against my shoulder. You and Miss Park are really friends? Best friends. Have been since we were 18. Why didn't you ever tell Aunt Victoria? I thought about that. Because Jessica doesn't like people knowing she's wealthy. She says it changes how they treat her. And I respected that more than I cared about impressing Victoria. Emma pulled back, looking at me with those serious eyes. Aunt Victoria's really mean, isn't she? Yes, sweetheart. She really is. My phone buzzed. A text from Jessica. Dinner next week? Bring Emma. I want to properly meet the young lady. I showed Emma the message. She smiled, small but genuine. Can we still have Thanksgiving at Grandma's? Emma asked. Absolutely. The burgundy Louboutins sat on my counter, one polished, one still scuffed. I picked them up and put them in a box. Victoria could figure out how to get them back. Emma returned to her homework. I finished making lunch. The afternoon sun continued filtering through the windows, but something had shifted. The air felt lighter. My phone rang again. Sarah, Victoria just called me crying about Thanksgiving, Mom said. What happened? She was rude to Emma. I handled it. She said something about her boss? Jessica Park. We went to college together. A long pause. The Jessica Park? From Meridian Tech. That's the one. Mom laughed, surprised. You never mentioned that. Jessica values her privacy. Well, Mom said, and I could hear the smile in her voice. I guess Thanksgiving's at my place after all. I'll make the turkey. You bring the sweet potatoes. And Sarah? Tell Emma her grandmother is very proud of her. I will, Mom. I hung up and watched Emma work through her math problems, her pencil moving steadily across the page. She was capable and smart and kind. She always had been. Victoria's words hadn't changed that. They never could. The next morning my phone buzzed at 8:15. Jessica, Victoria came in. We talked. She's on probation for 6 months. No promotion. Mandatory HR training on professional conduct. One more incident and she's done. Me, thank you. Jessica, thank you for finally letting me help. Dinner Thursday at 7? Me will be there. I showed Emma the messages over breakfast. She read them carefully, then looked up at me. Is Aunt Victoria going to be mad at us forever? She asked. Probably. But that's okay. We don't need people in our lives who treat us badly, even if they're family. Emma thought about that, then nodded. Miss Park sounds nice. She is. You'll like her. Does she really live in a big house? Huge. With a pool. And 3 rescue dogs. Emma's eyes lit up. Really? Really? She'll probably let you play with them. My daughter smiled, genuine and bright, and I knew we'd be okay. Victoria's cruelty had revealed something. Not about Emma's worth, but about the strength of friendships built on respect instead of status. The burgundy shoes stayed in their box. Victoria never asked for them back. I donated them 3 weeks later. They were just shoes after all. And Emma? She was so much more than anyone's tool for polishing them. The mahogany dining table had been in my family for 3 generations. Every Sunday at precisely 6 o'clock, we gathered around it for dinner. My mother set the table with her grandmother's china, the kind she only used for real family occasions, as she called them. I arrived at my parents' house with my 2 children, Marcus, 15, and Lily, 8. Lily had been with us for 6 months now, and the adoption would be finalized in 3 weeks. She held my hand tightly as we walked up the familiar stone pathway to the front door. Remember what we talked about? I whispered to her. You belong here just as much as anyone else. She nodded, but I could see the uncertainty in her eyes. My family hadn't exactly welcomed the news of our foster placement with enthusiasm. My mother had made several pointed comments over the phone about keeping bloodlines pure, and not knowing where these children come from. My father opened the door, barely glancing at Lily before turning his attention to Marcus. There's my grandson. Come help me with something in the garage before dinner. Marcus looked at me and I gave him a subtle nod. He'd been my rock through this entire process, protective of his new sister in ways that made my heart swell with pride. Inside, the house smelled of roasted chicken and my mother's famous herb stuffing. My sister Jennifer was already seated in the living room with her husband, Todd, and their 3 children. My brother David sat in my father's recliner, scrolling through his phone. Oh, you brought her, Jennifer said, not bothering to hide the disapproval in her voice. Her name is Lily, I said evenly. And yes, she's part of our family now. My mother emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. Her eyes swept over Lily with the same expression she used when examining produce at the grocery store. Dinner's ready. Everyone to the table. We filed into the dining room. I'd counted the place settings earlier when we arrived. 9 plates for 9 people. The math was right, but something felt wrong. My mother began directing everyone to their seats with the precision of a military general. Jennifer, you and Todd here. David, you're at the end. Marcus, next to your grandfather. I guided Lily toward 2 empty chairs together. Before we could sit, my mother's hand shot out. Not there. That's Jennifer's usual spot. There's another seat right here, I said, pointing to the chair beside Marcus. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line. She walked to the kitchen and returned with a folding chair, the cheap plastic kind we used for overflow guests at Thanksgiving. She placed it against the wall several feet from the table. She can sit there. The room went silent. Even my nieces and nephews stopped their chatter. Mom, there are empty chairs at the table. Those are for family, she said simply, as if explaining basic arithmetic. I felt Lily's hand tighten around mine. I looked down at her, and she was staring at the folding chair with the kind of resignation that no 8-year-old should ever have to feel. She is family, I said, my voice steady despite the anger building in my chest. My father cleared his throat from his position at the head of the table. Your mother set the table the way she wants it. Let's not make a scene. I'm not the one making a scene. Jennifer sighed dramatically. Can we just eat? Some of us have to get the kids home at a reasonable hour. I pulled out the chair next to Marcus. Lily, sit here. My mother's face flushed red. She crossed the room in 3 quick steps and physically grabbed the back of the chair I just pulled out. Foster kids don't belong at the family table, she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Everyone froze. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Lily didn't move. She didn't cry. She just stood there, her small hands still in mine, staring at the plate of food she'd never get to touch. Then Marcus, who had been sitting quietly through the entire exchange, calmly pulled out his phone. His fingers moved across the screen with purpose. Grandma, he said, his voice remarkably steady for a 15-year-old, want me to show everyone the real family will? My parents' faces drained of color simultaneously. My mother's grip on the chair loosened. My father set down his water glass so hard it sloshed onto the tablecloth. Marcus, put that away, my father said, but his voice cracked. Why? Marcus asked innocently. I think everyone should know the truth. Especially Aunt Jennifer and Uncle David, since they keep talking about their inheritance shares. Jennifer sat up straighter. What is he talking about? Marcus looked at me and I gave him a small nod. We'd discussed this possibility. I'd hoped it wouldn't come to this, but my mother had finally crossed a line I couldn't uncross. 3 years ago, Marcus began, still holding his phone, when Grandpa Joe died and left everything to Mom, Grandma and Grandpa were really upset. Remember that, Aunt Jennifer? Jennifer's eyes narrowed. Of course I remember. Dad contested it. Said Grandpa Joe wasn't in his right mind. Right, Marcus continued. And the whole family fell apart for about 6 months. Everyone fighting over money and property. My brother David leaned forward. We all know this story, kid. What's your point? My point is what you don't know. Mom settled everything. She gave Grandma and Grandpa the lake house outright. She gave Aunt Jennifer 40% of Grandpa Joe's stock portfolio. She gave Uncle David the commercial property in downtown that now rents for $35,000 a month. The room had gone completely silent now. Even my young nieces and nephews sensed something important was happening. Mom kept only one thing from Grandpa Joe's estate. Want to guess what it was? No one answered. The trust fund. The one Grandpa Joe set up that pays for this house's mortgage, Grandma and Grandpa's living expenses, Aunt Jennifer's kids' private school tuition, and Uncle David's car payments. Marcus paused. Mom is the sole trustee. Has been for 3 years. My mother's hand flew to her throat. That's not, you can't, I can pull up the documents right now, Marcus said, tapping his phone screen. Mom made me co-trustee last year when I turned 15. It's all legal. She wanted me to understand financial responsibility. My father's chair scraped against the hardwood floor as he stood abruptly. Now hold on just a minute. Sit down, Dad, I said quietly. My voice had that edge I usually reserved for difficult clients at the law firm. Let him finish. Marcus continued. The trust agreement is really specific about how the money can be used and who qualifies as beneficiaries. Grandpa Joe was very clear. He wrote that funds should only support family members who demonstrate compassion, integrity, and unconditional love toward all family members, especially the most vulnerable. Jennifer's face had gone pale. What does that mean? It means, I said, standing up and putting my arm around Lily, that the trust can be terminated for beneficiaries who fail to meet those standards. It's not automatic. As trustee I have discretion. But discrimination against a minor child, Especially a foster child who will legally become my daughter in 3 weeks. That's pretty clearly against Grandpa Joe's wishes. My mother finally found her voice. You wouldn't dare. Wouldn't I? I met her eyes directly. You just told my 8-year-old daughter that she doesn't deserve to sit at the family table. You brought out a folding chair like she's some kind of overflow guest at a party. What exactly do you think Grandpa Joe would say about that? The silence stretched out. I could see the calculations happening behind my siblings' eyes. Jennifer's kids attended a private academy that cost $48,000 per year per child. The trust paid for all 3 of them. David's lifestyle depended entirely on that rental income, since his own business had failed 2 years ago. And my parents? They lived in this house mortgage-free because the trust paid the remaining balance of $16,000 per month. Their car, their country club membership, their twice-yearly vacations, all funded by the trust distributions. This is blackmail, my father said, but there was no strength behind it. No, I corrected. This is consequences. For 3 years I've paid for your lives without asking for anything in return. I didn't even tell you the truth because I didn't want it to change how you treated me. I wanted your love to be genuine, not purchased. I knelt down next to Lily, who was still standing frozen in the same spot. But I won't let you hurt my daughter. Not for money. Not for anything. Jennifer stood up suddenly. This is insane. You're going to cut off the whole family because Mom made a seeding mistake. A seeding mistake? Marcus's voice was sharp. She literally said foster kids don't belong at the family table. That's not a mistake. That's who she is. Todd, Jennifer's husband, put his hand on her arm. Jen, maybe we should. Shut up, Todd. Jennifer's face was red now. You're really going to take away my kid's education over this? I'm not taking anything, I said. I'm giving you a choice. Apologize to Lily. Mean it. And agree that from now on she is treated exactly like every other grandchild in this family. Or the trust distributions stop next month. My mother made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious in my life. Marcus pulled up something on his phone and turned it toward my father. That's the trust document. Section 12, subsection C. The trustee may terminate benefits to any beneficiary whose actions demonstrate cruelty, prejudice, or willful harm to vulnerable family members. Mom has every right to do this. My father's hands were shaking as he read the screen. I watched the realization settle over him. This wasn't a bluff. This was real. Lily, my mother said, her voice strangled. I apologize. That was inappropriate. Try again, I said coldly. And this time look at her when you say it. My mother's eyes filled with tears, but I felt no sympathy. She walked slowly across the room until she stood directly in front of Lily. I'm sorry, she said, and this time she did look at my daughter. You belong here. You're part of this family. Lily looked up at me, uncertain. I nodded to her. It's okay, Lily whispered. No, I said. It's not okay. But it's a start. I looked around the room at my family. These people I'd loved my entire life, who had shown me exactly who they were when it mattered most. Here's how this works from now on. Lily gets treated like every other grandchild. Same presents at. Same attention at birthdays. Same seats at the same table. If I see any difference, any at all, the trust distributions stop. Permanently. You're destroying this family, David said quietly. No, I replied. I'm saving it. Or at least I'm saving the part worth keeping. I pulled out the chair at the table and guided Lily into it. Then I sat down beside her with Marcus on her other side. Now, I said, picking up my fork, let's have Sunday dinner. As a family. My mother served the food with shaking hands. The meal was silent except for the scraping of silverware on china. Jennifer left early with her family, barely saying goodbye. David sat through the entire dinner, staring at his plate. As we were leaving, my father stopped me at the door. Your grandfather would be proud of you, he said quietly. I'm sorry it took this to make us see clearly. I nodded but didn't respond. Words were cheap. I'd spent my whole life listening to words. It was time to watch actions instead. In the car on the way home, Lily finally spoke. Are they going to be nicer now? I don't know, I told her honestly. But if they're not, it won't matter. Because we don't need them. Marcus leaned forward from the back seat. We're our own family now. The three of us. Lily smiled, the first real smile I'd seen from her all day. 3 weeks later, the adoption was finalized. My parents sent a card with a small gift. Jennifer's family didn't acknowledge it at all. David sent a text message with a generic congratulations. But it didn't matter. Because on that courthouse day when the judge declared Lily legally mine, I looked at my 2 children and knew I'd made the right choice. Some things are worth more than money or family approval. Some things are worth everything. The summer garden party was my mother's annual show of superiority. White linen tablecloths stretched across tables under blooming magnolia trees, crystal glasses caught the afternoon light, and 75 relatives mingled on the perfectly manicured lawn of the house I'd been secretly paying for since 2019. Nobody knew that part. My daughter Emma sat beside me, her 8-year-old face bright with excitement. She'd chosen her favorite yellow dress that morning, the one with sunflowers embroidered along the hem. My son David, 16 and perpetually observant, sat across from us, already looking uncomfortable in his button-down shirt. "This is so pretty, Mom," Emma whispered, reaching for a cucumber sandwich from the tiered serving platter. Before her small fingers could grasp it, my mother's hand shot out and snatched the plate away entirely. "Adopted children eat in the kitchen," my mother announced, her voice cutting through the pleasant conversation around us. "We have standards at this table." The immediate vicinity went silent. Forks paused midair. Aunt Linda's glass stopped halfway to her lips. Emma's hand remained extended, hovering over empty space where the plate had been seconds before. My daughter looked at her empty hands, then at me, confusion clouding her dark eyes. She didn't cry. Emma rarely cried. She'd learned early that tears didn't change cruelty, they only fed it. I reached for my water glass, took a slow sip and said nothing. My hands didn't shake. They never did anymore. "Margaret, don't you think that's a bit harsh?" Uncle Tom ventured carefully from the end of the table. "Harsh?" My mother turned to him with practiced indignation. "I'm teaching appropriate boundaries. This girl needs to understand her place in this family. She's not blood." David's jaw tightened. I caught his eye and gave the smallest shake of my head. "Not yet." My mother continued, emboldened by the audience. "Do you know how much this party costs? How much this entire estate costs to maintain? I can't have every random child thinking they're entitled to the same treatment as real family members." "She's 8 years old," my sister Claire said quietly from her seat. "And she needs to learn," my mother snapped back. "Unlike some people, I don't pretend blood doesn't matter. Jennifer here made her choices. She adopted some stranger's child instead of giving me proper biological grandchildren. Well, actions have consequences." Emma's shoulders curled inward slightly. That small collapse of her posture did something to my carefully maintained composure, but I held it together. I'd learned to hold everything together. "Mom," I said calmly, "Emma is your granddaughter." "Don't insult my intelligence," she replied, gesturing dismissively. "I know what adoption means. It means you were too selfish to have real children. Too focused on your little nonprofit job that barely pays anything. Living in that tiny apartment, depending on family generosity for everything." The tiny apartment she thought I lived in was actually a property I'd purchased as an investment. I rented it to young professionals and stayed there occasionally to maintain the illusion. My actual home was a 4-bedroom house across town that nobody in my family had ever visited. "Grandma," David said, his voice tight, "you should stop." "I'll speak how I want in my own home," my mother declared, warming to her theme. "I've worked hard for everything I have. I raised 3 children in this house. I maintained property values in this neighborhood for 35 years. I don't need lectures from a 16-year-old about how to run my household." Her household. The irony was exquisite. David looked at me. I could see the question in his eyes, the same question he'd been asking for 2 years since he'd accidentally found the documents. "When are you going to tell them?" I'd always said not yet. The time wasn't right. But watching Emma's small hands clasped together in her lap, watching her try to disappear at a family gathering that should have welcomed her, something shifted. I gave David the slightest nod. He stood up so abruptly his chair scraped against the stone patio. The sound cut through the murmured conversations that had resumed around us. "Grandma," he said, his young voice carrying across the garden, "should I tell everyone who really paid for this house?" The color drained from my mother's face so quickly I thought she might faint. Around us, conversations stuttered to a halt. 75 relatives turned to watch. "David, sit down," my mother said, but her voice had lost its certainty. "No," he replied. "You just humiliated my sister at your party. In your house. Except it's not actually your house anymore, is it?" "I don't know what you think you know," my mother started. "I know that Mom has been paying your mortgage since Dad died," David continued. His hands were shaking but his voice stayed steady. "I know that you were 3 months away from foreclosure in 2019. I know that Mom refinanced this entire property under her name to save it." Uncle Tom set down his fork. Aunt Linda's mouth had fallen open. My sister Claire was staring at me with wide eyes. You're confused," my mother stammered. "I'm not confused," David said. "I found the documents last year when I was looking for my birth certificate. Mom keeps everything organized in labeled files. Property deeds, mortgage statements, payment records. All of it." My mother's face had gone from white to red. "Jennifer, tell him he's mistaken." I took another sip of water. "He's not mistaken." The garden was so quiet I could hear the fountain 3 yards away, the gentle splash of water over stone. "When Dad died," I said calmly, addressing the table, "he left significant debts nobody knew about. Medical bills from treatments insurance didn't cover. Business loans he'd personally guaranteed. Mom was facing foreclosure within months." "You told us you had it handled," Claire said to our mother. "I did handle it," my mother snapped, but her authority was crumbling. "You called me," I corrected. "You called me crying at 2 in the morning begging for help. You said you'd lose everything. You said Dad's memory would be destroyed if people knew he'd left you in debt." Uncle Tom leaned forward. "How much debt?" $473,000, I said. "Medical bills, business loans, and 18 months of missed mortgage payments with penalties." Aunt Linda gasped. "How did your nonprofit job?" "I don't work at a nonprofit," I said. "I own one. I'm the founder and director of Riverside Community Foundation. We manage assets worth approximately $200 million. My annual salary is $280,000. I also consult for 3 other charitable organizations. My total annual income is around $450,000. The silence was absolute. "That's not possible," my mother whispered. "You live in that tiny apartment. You drive that old car. You never have money when we go out." "The apartment is an investment property I rent out," I explained. "I stay there when I visit to avoid questions. The car is 12 years old because it runs perfectly and I don't care about impressing people. And I never have money when we go out because I'm tired of paying for everyone's meals while being told I'm the family failure." "But you always said," Claire started. "I never said anything," I interrupted. "You all assumed. When I started the foundation 8 years ago I tried to tell you." Mom interrupted to explain how charities don't make money. Dad changed the subject to talk about proper careers. I stopped trying to correct you. My mother was gripping the edge of the table. "The house is in my name," I confirmed. "When you called that night I paid off all of Dad's debts. I refinanced the mortgage, made you the primary resident, and I've been paying it ever since. $4,200 every month for 7 years. Plus property taxes. Plus the major repairs you thought insurance covered." "Why would you do that?" Uncle Tom asked. "Because she's my mother," I said simply. "Because this was my childhood home. Because despite everything I didn't want to see her homeless." "Despite everything?" my mother repeated, and I heard the threat in her voice, the old instinct to control the narrative. "Despite being told my entire life that I was the disappointment," I said, my voice still calm. "Despite Dad telling me business school was wasted on a daughter. Despite you telling everyone I was barely scraping by while I was actually building something meaningful." Emma's small voice cut through the tension. "You own Grandma's house?" I looked at my daughter, at her confused, hurt face. "Yes, sweetheart. I own this house. And you are my daughter, which means you have every right to be here. More right than almost anyone at this table." David sat back down, his job done. He reached across and squeezed Emma's hand. "Jennifer," my mother said, trying to reassemble her authority, "we can discuss this privately." "No," I said. "We're discussing it now. In front of everyone. Because you just told my 8-year-old daughter she's not good enough to eat at your table." At a table I own. In a house I pay for. Aunt Linda's husband, Richard, spoke up from the far end. So what happens now? Now, I said, pulling my phone from my purse, we make some changes. I opened my email and began typing, my fingers steady on the screen. I'm emailing my property manager and my attorney. Effective immediately, the residents at 847 Maple Grove will have new occupancy terms. You can't, my mother started. I can, I said, still typing. It's my property. You're listed as primary resident, not owner. That's a revocable arrangement. Where would I go? The fear in her voice was real now. I'm not evicting you, I said, finishing the email and looking up. But there will be changes. First, Emma is welcome in every room of this house. Every chair, every table, every space. If she's not welcome, then nobody is. Emma was watching me with wide eyes. Second, I continued, the narrative changes today. I'm done being the family disappointment. You want to live in this house I bought? Then you acknowledge reality. I'm successful. My work matters. And my daughter, both my children, are your grandchildren without qualification. My mother's hands were shaking. You'd really throw me out over this? You really just told an 8-year-old child she had to eat in the kitchen because she's adopted, I replied. At a party I'm ultimately paying for. Yes, I'd really do this. Claire found her voice. How long has it been? Since you paid off everything. 7 years, I said. I closed on the refinance in September 2019. And you never told anyone, Uncle Tom said slowly. You just let us all think. That I was struggling, I finished. Yes. Because it was easier than fighting about it. Because every time I tried to share good news, someone explained why it wasn't that impressive. So I stopped sharing. Richard shook his head. That's over $400,000 you've paid. Just in mortgage payments. $428,000 in mortgage payments, I corrected. Roughly another $180,000 in property taxes, insurance and major repairs. The roof in 2021, the HVAC system last year, the foundation work. My mother had tears running down her face now, but they didn't move me the way they might have years ago. I'd seen her cry before, usually when she wanted something. I've been grateful, she whispered. I just didn't know. You did know, I said quietly. You knew I was paying for everything. You chose to believe I was somehow doing it while barely surviving, because that fit your narrative better than admitting your daughter had succeeded. Emma tugged on my sleeve. Can we go home? In a minute, baby, I said, stroking her hair. First, Grandma needs to apologize to you. My mother looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks. She opened her mouth, closed it, then looked at Emma's small face. I'm sorry, she said, and for the first time she sounded like she might mean it. That was cruel. You didn't deserve that. Emma nodded silently, still pressed against my side. I stood up, gathering my purse. David and Emma stood with me. We're leaving now. The party can continue. I'll have my attorney send over the updated residency agreement next week. Read it carefully, Mom. As we walked through the garden toward the front driveway, I heard the explosion of conversation behind us. 75 relatives all trying to process what they'd just learned. David opened the car door for Emma, then slid into the front seat. As I started the engine, he said quietly, "That was intense." "That was necessary," I replied. "Are you really going to make her sign new papers?" Emma asked from the back seat. "Yes," I said. "Not to be cruel. But boundaries matter. And you matter, Emma. You matter more than pretending everything is fine." In the rearview mirror I saw Emma nod, her face thoughtful. As we pulled away from the house I owned, the house my mother thought was her throne, I felt something I hadn't felt in years at a family gathering. Peace. My phone started buzzing before we reached the end of the street. Claire's name flashed on the screen. Then Uncle Tom. Then Aunt Linda. I turned the phone face down and kept driving. They could wait. For 7 years I'd waited while they assumed, judged, and dismissed, while they built their comfortable narratives about my failure and their superiority. They could wait a few hours to hear the truth they should have asked about years ago. Beside me, David turned on the radio. Behind me, Emma hummed along to a song she recognized. And I drove us home, to the house nobody knew about, where my daughter could eat at any table she wanted.